Today, I would like to talk about the study of poetry written by Matthew Arnold, one of the leading Victorian poets. In fact, the study of poetry was the general introduction to a book or an anthology named The English Poets, written by T.H. Words during the Victorian period. And Matthew Arnold had included this study of poetry as the general introduction to that book named The English Poets. The study of poetry is actually a sort of criticism about the nature, function, status, dignity, definition, standard of poetry. We have to remember that during the Victorian period, particularly in the middle of the Victorian period, there was the decadence in the composition of poetry actually, and there was a huge number of scientific achievements, and because of those scientific achievements, religion was shaken and faith was shaken by the doubt itself. And Matthew Arnold was very much concerned about the loss of religion during that time. Matthew Arnold was, a person who believed in religion, but very unfortunately, because of the scientific achievements, religion could not have the position on the Victorian people. Victorian people became very much skeptical about the identity of Almighty, about the importance of religion, and they became, very much, materialistic during that time. And therefore, Matthew Arnold believed that there should be something as the replacement of religion which could have the capability to console human beings, to give inspiration to human beings. And Matthew Arnold believed that poetry should have the capability to inspire, to give consolation, to give inspiration to human beings, because poetry contains both religion and philosophy. And science is not capable of giving, total consolation to human beings. And science may be important, and science is also very much important for the lifestyle of human beings, no doubt in it. But for the mind satisfaction, there should be something which can get the position, or which can take the position of religion. And Matthew Arnold believed that poetry had that capability, or poetry should have that capability to get the position of science actually. But he had attempted to give the definition of poetry. He had told that poetry should be the criticism of life. That is, the poetry is the criticism of life. Very unfortunately, in our society, actually, criticism is a word which is used always in the negative sense. But criticism is not a word to be used only in the negative sense. Criticism means to talk both about the positive and the negative things. And therefore, whenever poetry is considered to be the criticism of life, it means that poetry should reflect both the positive and the negative things from the society actually. And there should be the ideas, there should be the philosophies, there should be something which would have the capability to give consolation to human beings. But in order to give consolation, the poetry should be a standard type of poetry, because the standard poetry will have only the capability to give consolation. The ordinary type of poetry will not have the capability to give consolation. And the readers should have to identify which, writing is considered, or which poetry is considered to be better type of poetry. And in case of identifying or evaluating better type of poetry, a reader should have to should have to depend on a real estimate. There are, according to Matthew Arnold, there are three types of estimations. One estimate is called real estimate, another estimate is called personal estimate, and the next estimate is called the historical estimate. Real estimate is actually the most important one, because real estimate means to evaluate a particular piece of poetry without having any biasness. on the basis of neutrality. There should not be any sort of biasness. Whether this poet is of my religion or the poet is of my familiarity, it doesn't matter. The matter is that whether the art of poetry is considered to be important, that is the most important thing. If the art of poetry is important, whether the poet is of my caste, my religion, or of my country, doesn't matter. It matters that he could produce something which can be considered to be extraordinary one. And this is real estimate. And personal estimate means only the personal test, personal evaluation. And personal estimate is very much, it is considered to be very much, biased estimate. Personal estimate means, suppose I am of this religion and the poet is of the same religion, and therefore I would like that, or I will like that poet. It is personal estimate. It is not dependent on the quality or merit of the poetry, and therefore personal estimate should have to be discarded. And historical estimate means because of the historical position, one poet is evaluated more than other poet, and on the basis of the historical stand, if you evaluate a poet, it is not very much unbiased estimation, rather I should say. And therefore the estimate should be always real estimate, and real estimate means very much unbiased, without having any sort of personal taste, just to evaluate the poetry on the basis of this art, on the basis of the standard of this art. And how can you consider the poetry to be very much a standard? And it depends on the matter and manner. Matter means subject matter. The subject matter of the contents of the poetry should be extraordinary, and the manner, the style of narrative, the style of representation of the poetry should also have to be better. There should be extraordinary figures of speech which could make the poetry a better one, because it will have the extraordinary manner of representation. So both the matter and the manner are important for making a poetry extraordinary, and that extraordinary poem can give inspiration, consolation to the readers. And another important thing that is expressed by Matthew Arnold in this study of poetry, that is Touchstone method. Touchstone method means whenever you will evaluate a particular piece of poetry, then you have to compare, make a comparison or contrast between this particular piece of poetry with extraordinary poets, or the extraordinary pieces of writings of extraordinary poets. And if you make a comparison with the extraordinary poets and poets, that is called Touchstone method. And that Touchstone method is, reflected by Matthew Arnold in the study of poetry, which later on had been taken by T.S. Eliot in his writings and in his traditional and individual talent. So actually, in this way, Matthew Arnold had attempted to talk about the nature, function, definition, dignity, status, characteristics of the poetry and the poets. And he had talked about different types of figures of speech, about the narrative technique, about the sound of the poetry, about the use of the figures of speech, different types of pictorial quality, use of imagery. And these things are, very much important for making a piece of poetry to be very much extraordinary one. In my another class, I will talk about the evaluation of Chaucer, Geoffrey Chaucer, to Burns by Matthew Arnold in the study of poetry, because in a single class it is not possible to talk the comprehensive things of Matthew Arnold's study of poetry. Thanks to all of you for your patient hearing.